Ciao, miei amici. Benvenuti al mercoledì dal vivo. If you're wondering what's up with the Italian, I'll explain that a little later. But today, we're going to be in Versailles in France. And this lovely big urn or planter that was at the top of the stairwell here, and the figures walking up and down the garden of Versailles. And I have always been enamored of this wonderful painting by John Singer Sargent of a fountain in Via in Frascati, I guess in Tuscany, I think. Sadly, this was destroyed in World War II, but I have always loved how he handled this in such a beautiful, complete, but exuberant, sketchy way, with the luminosity of it and in the light of Italy. Hi, Cindy. And I'm going to hopefully try to catch some of that in this urn in Versailles here and work a few figures in and things like that. So I'll put that aside. And this is the photo that I put out Monday to look at. I was thinking about maybe ways I could redo it, frame it. I played around a little bit with bringing it a little farther forward, which I think is nice. I kind of want to make it oh, Michael, hello. Sort of the feature and the figures, the secondary feature, and all the tiny little figures walking there, and hopefully I can express the just incredible vastness of that garden. It was crazy big. And very hot that day. So the problem here, Catherine, hello. I've got, it's sort of, right now we have a seesaw kind of composition. So the purpose today was, how can we move figures around? Hi, Carol. Glad you're feeling better. Such that the composition is a little more complete and not the seesaw thing. You know, people are very interesting. This is very interesting. I don't want them to compete. So I think I'm going to move this fellow. I'm going to call him Jerry Seinfeld. I don't know why. He reminds me of Jerry Seinfeld. I'm going to move him over here a little bit, and then I think I'm going to use these people coming up the stairwell here. This guy's interesting. This guy looks like Idris Elba. Something like that. So the draw. Materials 11 by 15 quarter sheet of Saunders cold press. Selection of colors here. I'm probably going to use the Prussian blue, maybe this Nicolazzo yellow, which makes a good green, rich green with the Prussian blue for that. Raw umber and yellow ochre are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting in here. And I'm going to need a little bit of alizarin for the pink of that fellow's shirt, because I like the pink against the green. And raw umber with a lot of water and maybe a little bit of blue are going to create the concrete gravel colors. The darks will probably be mixtures of ultramarine blue or cerulean blue with either the burnt sienna / red iron oxide, or the burnt umber, or the raw umber. So hello, Lisa, how are you? So when I'm contemplating a composition like this, the first thing I want to do is find as always, the key verticals and the key horizontals. So top third of the image, I think I'm going to have the horizon line, which does jog a bit. So I'm just lightly popping that in. Notice I hold the pencil here rather than here so that I can get a very light mark. I will darken it up so you can see it later. I just like it light so I can kind of find it. Right about here, a little more than the third, I'm going to center the urn. It's going to be about yay wide at its widest, and that's the thing to do. And then I want to find these other key horizontals. That's the most important horizontal. But this one, notice, this is relatively flat. This one is a bit of a pitch. And it's, well, let's get it in the, it's about, not quite a quarter, is it? This one as well. Might be, I have a tendency to lean when I take photos. That might be part of it. An easier way to do this might be just to look at this, if you squint and look at this dark shape there. Where does that occur? Okay. And when you have a rectangle, which is what we always have when we paint a picture, vertical or not. Hi, Becky. The thing we have to do is try to not put other rectangles in it or bands if we're trying to create a sense of space. So diagonals help us do that. Okay, now where does the top of that come? A little bit above this. Now, within that, and all this will get darker, I promise. Let's find some of these other, the walkway is, this part of the walkway is nearly vertical, just a titch off. This is quite an angle. And these tall, very neatly organized, whatever they are, come there, and their bottoms, notice, okay, here's our perspective. Hello, Jan. Hi, Martha. Straight for the sidewalk on one side, a little more angled for the sidewalk on the other side, and a little more angled for the bottoms of the trees. So there's our perspective, like that. So that helps me find the bases of these trees and get in their shadows. And this is a malleable shape, malleable in the sense that I can make it taller, shorter, whatever I need to get some interest going with this. I don't want this, top of this, to be the same as the top of that, or the top of that. I need a little bit of variety there. So, where does the base come here? The plinth, is it, if that's the right thing, is a little bit above there, but it's not the same width of here. It's about in some. So I look for that kind of thing. And since it's about eye level to me, because that is 5'7". It's 5 feet 7 inches tall. I'm looking down on that, straight at that. Okay. And it comes a little below, well, a little below where the stairwell is going to appear. And it behooves us to take the time to get this Right, there's a little bit of very little curvature here. Very little here, which is that line there is below the horizon. So I can do that. I've got what is essentially an egg or an ellipse here. But it flattens out at the top because the conical section is a little bit above it. Maybe I need to be fatter on that. That helps me find this walkway, which doesn't look like much, but I can tell you, it's long. It's very long. I'm convinced that the entire thing was not meant to be walked in. It was meant to be seen from the building, Versailles proper, because it's just interminably long walks. So I'm making it like this first, but I'm going to put the nice curvature to it a little later. The reverse, I'm looking at this thing, and there's a transition there, and I'm thinking I saw something very much like this thing at Home Goods the other day in Iowa City. Now, because we're looking slightly down on this, there's going to be a bit of, let's see if I can pull it up. Come on, stay. Curvature there. Less here, none here, none here, because that's almost eye level. But I am seeing then there is the plinth that it's on. And then the big base that it's on. And it has a base and probably some sort of thing that I couldn't translate, telling you what it is and why. Now let's get a little bit more of the curvature in here. And there's some decoration to it. There are some ram's heads. I don't know if you can make these out. There. And I can see I've got a little bit of a, maybe come further that way and narrower this way. What I don't try to do is draw the contour here. I try to construct the thing in terms of its horizontals and its verticals. And having once raised sheep, I have a little bit of a knowledge of what the heads look like. Particularly the rams. We had a ram, and they were Rambouillet varieties, so they were a French Merino. And there's a sun head here with some decoration here. So as you can see, I'm starting to darken this up. And I'm getting my landscape in before I get my figures in. If you can see a triangle here, that will help. That's a simple shape that we can eyeball or see. There's some lamps and lights and little things that we don't worry about at this stage. There is a walkway on this side as well, but it's in shadow. So I'm going to be a little bit more distinct with these very trimmed trees. Now notice that also their tops will stair step down, and their bases will stair step as well and cast a shadow. Now there is a area like that leading to the central area where there's a fountain. Hold your pencils to the, see I'm holding it here, and then I look at there and I see how much I drew it here, but it's more like there. And where does it come? It's pretty much even with that. So that's another way to find it. But our figure is going to go over that. I'm going to bring him a little closer for the composition of it. Oh, let's see. Okay. There's a grassy area in here. Let's see. I think I need to be a little wider here. There's cross. Okay. Most of the detail within the, I'm going to call it an urn. I don't actually know what the correct term for this sort of thing is. Most of it, it's going to get painted rather than drawn, or at least that's my preferred method. I'm trying to get something that looks more like a travel sketch rather than a super finished kind of picture. Now there's some sort of sign hanging here so that you don't go down that set of steps. But we're going to ignore that because it's too close to the Now our figures. Figures. Hi, Leah. Leah was there. She knows the place. There are a series of statuary which are quite tall along here. I'm just going to try to miss those when I lay in the darks. The figures are the more important thing, and I think I'm going to go back to the first figure, the guy I'm calling Jerry Seinfeld, and I want to put him a little closer here. Put his head a bit, well, let's see. I'm going to make a rectangle for him. He's standing up here, and I'm going to try to create him within this area here. And then I'm going to put some heads down here, maybe one over here, so that I create a kind of interesting central area. I might put, this girl gets lost. Dark hair, dark top. This girl, we find her because she's dark bottom, light top. I might put her like over, well, gosh. Let's see. See, I like to make these decisions on the fly. There's that main fountain. Maybe I'll put Jerry Seinfeld over here and create a group, a subgroup. Yeah, let's do that. Everything is erasable. We're just working in pencil. Head, shoulders, torso with the shirt. And when I erase and draw it in tighter, or more specifically, it'll become better. This arm is somewhat relaxed. This one is probably holding a phone. Collar, head, shirt tail, shorts. Backward curve of the calf. I'm going to put the head looking down more. Now, this lady over here, I think I want to use her, but put her a little closer. So do you see like we have almost a square there? So I'm going to start with a square. And then I'm going to elbow, elbow. Notice one elbow is lower than the other elbow. Head, hat. And let's get her out. She's lifting one leg as though she's walking towards the stairwell there. So I'm looking for the space between her legs. That there. The classic Degas ballet dancer approach. The other thing is we have some nice cast shadows which lead us into the foreground. Let's go to, she's out of the picture here, but I'm going to put her in the picture, and then I'm going to put some people down here. Heads, heading down the staircase there. A lot of drawing in this. Hi, Elaine. But we're going to, these figures are more or less in silhouette because there's a series of objects behind here that you can't see, and they're creating some shade on these people. The gentleman with the backpack, another person over here, and perhaps a person there. And the reason I'm clumping them like that is so that they make a connection. We don't really have enough information to see the whole fountain, which is sort of the main fountain there. Let's start erasing some of the things that we don't need. Construction lines, that kind of thing. And I'm going to pull some shadows out from these figures to a whole nother area in here. I need to, the little figures, the tiny figures that are in the far distance, those we're going to indicate after the fact because they will be a dark on a light surface and somewhat easier to paint. We don't have to paint around them. Okay, let's clear this up a bit. Now, the general sequence, as in almost all watercolors, is light to dark. Yeah, you know, I am not well centered here. That thing is going to fall over. That's something worth checking. Your center line through an object like that. There's a little bit of that pool way in the back showing. And of course, we're going to try and use some strong atmospheric perspective between the darks here and the colors of the greens back there to get the sense of that distance. And I think I need to make this area a little significantly thinner. Watch out for things that you know should be in your mind a certain degree of width, but when you're looking at them in a distance, they're going to need to be quite a bit smaller. So it was a hot day. I want to try and get some of that. I think this is probably as far as I could go. Probably holding a phone, ballet dancer approach. Very much. We don't talk like normal people. We don't do much like normal people. Good observation, Leah. Okay, maybe I'll just indicate some little people down here, or clumps of little groups of people. Best painted later, because then we can stick them where they look like they're going to do some good versus where they maybe perhaps actually are in the photograph. Since we're making a painting, that's our chief responsibility. Always when you create this rectangle that goes inside a frame, you have a responsibility to make that world or that little universe plausible and pleasurable to whoever has to look at it. They're not here. That is, they're not in Versailles. They are looking at your painting, and that universe has to make sense. And the universe within the frame is its own universe. So, I feel nervous as always. That's natural. My first thing is to try and figure out of those main planes, the earth, the sky, and the things sticking up out of the earth, which ones are dark, which ones are light, and which ones are medium. For the most part, the stuff sticking up like trees are kind of dark. The shadows, on the objects are not as dark as the trees, but if you squint, they are not as light as the sky, and they're certainly not as light as the concrete and the gravel. So, do I have any more things that I want? Hi, Jane. Looks like a giant chalice. It does, doesn't it? I'm trying to remember where it was relative to the main doors. This fountain and that walkway were pretty much centered on the main building, as I remember it. It was blazing hot that day. And I walked way the heck out there. But it was gorgeous. So for the light stuff, I'm going to go with some raw umber and a lot of water. For the medium, which will be the sky, I'm going to go with a blue, but I'm not going to make it notice it's a little bit darker over here than it is over there. I'm going to go with that because our light is coming in from a little bit kind of sort of this direction, which we can tell from the shadows. So lightest colors first. It means a lot of water and a little bit of pigment and a runny mix. I'm going to go with a little bit of raw umber and a little bit of yellow ochre. And a lot of water. And of course, this is going to, where are my whites going to be? His pink shirt is very light. The light of the hitting the urn and the tops of parts of it, I think I'm going to try and leave that white. So I'm not going to hit that. Let's go a little zippier, a little more yellow ochre, a little more warmth. There's a portion of the urn which is catching, and this is going to look brutal. Because everything I'm hitting now is going to be darker. Don't mind if I'm hitting the trees. Jerry Seinfeld, I'm going to miss him because that shirt is very light and pink. Ooh, gee, John, you overshot it there. I think I'm going to take a tissue and get this light spot there. Blot that. There's a light spot over here on the plinth. Everything down here, everything over there, everything over here, everything over here, except the shirt. Maybe your hat and her shirt. Head, legs are darker. Maybe that sidewalk. We'll leave parts of that lighter. Wonderful thing about watercolor is that first wash, you can really be pretty brutal. Let's get Jackie, hello. There. There is a bit of light on her hat. There's a bit of light on her blouse. I'm going to go for, because this is starting to dry, I don't have to worry about it, the sky color, which is primarily going to be cerulean. Runny mixes here. Darker than what we've been doing. Well, there are areas in here which are going to be darker, but maybe a little ultramarine too. It has to be darker than what I've done up till now, but certainly nowhere near as dark as that. So, hey, I know it'll be fun. Just because I want it a little bit lighter on this end, I am going to moisten it a bit. And then, blotting the brush and getting some more paint, I'm going to get back into here with the cerulean. And because I'm going to try to miss the top rim of that urn, that's what I'm going to call it. Let's get some ultramarine in there as well. We want it darker on the right and lighter on the left. And if it gets into the trees here, no big deal, because they're going to be darker, right? Only thing I have to miss is the urn. Rinsing that brush, getting a little bit more water, softer over here. Again, if I get into the trees, doesn't matter, because they are significantly darker. So that's not a big deal. In fact, if those areas back there are very blue, might be a good thing. That'll send them farther away. Okay. Shelley, hello. And I can just walk this down into here carefully, and it won't really matter as long as I miss that area. But well, no, that's going to be darker too. Just don't get into my sidewalk area here. That's what I have to be careful of. The head is darker. This, I think I want to dry. Looks like a holy mess now, but that's how these things go. So cover your ears. Here comes the hair dryer. Maybe going, well, no, let's stick with the brush we're using. Let's get the sort of pinkish color of Jerry Seinfeld's shirt. I'm going to mop out the blue. Well, let's mop all that out. We'll be getting stuff later. I'm going for the quinacridone rose, the alizarin crimson substitute, and a lot of water. Because I'm actually, at this point, I'm still painting light colors. That may look dark. There'll be some darker versions of it applied. But when we get these dark greens in around there, it's really going to make it jump out. Well, thanks, Michael. Hello, Roxanne. So I'm just going to let this bleed down. Let's see, let's get some siennas and get the Don't worry about his shorts because they're darker. I'm just going to get his legs. We're really not seeing any other flesh here. I might blot that. Where are other light colors? Okay, down here in the gravel, it's a grayer, more lavender, so I'm going to go raw umber blue. And that's going to look dark for now. Till I get this other stuff in. I might even take a tissue and mottle, M-O-T-T-L-E it. Hi, Joanne. Well, thank you. Thank you, Jane. Just dragging the tissue across it, trying to get a irregular effect to suggest the gravel without actually painting individual pebbles, because it's not the thing we're out after. It's the apron coming in. I could actually put a little lavender in that, couldn't I? Just for, well, it's not lavender. I'm throwing in some of the quinacridone rose. And maybe I'll scruffify it. That's an actual artistic word, scruffify. Now, let's see. Let's get this dry. If you were actually standing there, this stuff would be drying on you very quickly. And when it's allowed to dry on its own, it always does more interesting things than what the hairdryer will create. So I've kind of done my lights. Now we're working into our medium values. With the dark greens, we've got some, it's important. You think of this, this concrete or whatever this urn is made of, you think of it as being white. That's the local color. But if you squint at it, it is almost as dark as the greens of the trees. It's about the same value as the lighter portions of the trees, not as dark as the shadow portions of the trees. So what I might do is mix up a green, which I'm going to use Prussian because it leans green to begin with, and I'm using a stiffer brush, the Oriental brush, which is as opposed to the squirrel mop brush. And then into that, I'm going to mix some of this nickel azo yellow, which makes, well, geez, look at that. I'll put some raw umber in it too because it'll be less zippy. I don't want zippy greens because I need to keep them back there. Now, to the back, the very distant, I need a bluer corner of those same greens. So I'm going to, well, let's even get the cerulean or the turquoise, because they have that far away look. I'm going to start with them. Dog, that's maybe not even blue enough. Let's just go to straight up turquoise, or maybe even some lavender. Sometimes you have to fudge your distant greens to make them look far away. And that often means taking them all the way to blue. Which, if you're familiar with a painter named Wolf Kahn, who was mostly a pastelist, but also a oil painter too, he would take his colors almost all the way, his yellow greens to yellow, and he would take his blue greens all the way to blue, just to get that distance and just to get the oh, look at John, you painted out the pool. Blot. Let's see if we can recover that. So I'm moving in, I'm going to put a little bit of raw umber in that too. Moving into the foreground greens. Trying to be careful around my ram on the urn. These are the lighter greens that we are seeing. These are not the darkest greens. Hello, Nikki, a new friend. And maybe just to get some difference, in here I'm going to work a little bit of yellow ochre just to get a different character of green. Top edge, because it is, the sun is kissing that. And we're going to be working in the deeper, shadier versions of green as we go along. So a little bit more Prussian, a little bit of yellow ochre, careful with my rams. Oh, I'm trying to skip some statuary along that walkway. Now I have to be careful around Jerry Seinfeld here. I don't have to be careful around his head because that's going to be darker. I have to be careful around his shirt. Okay. Over here it's getting dry, so I have to keep working there. Let's get some turquoise or some richer colors in there. These greens are closer to us, so they're going to be a bit more vivid, even if they're dark. I'm going to, right about here, I'm going to try to leave some skips and some light spots for the junk that's going on there, statuary, lights, that sort of thing. Which we don't want to render quite, because this is a more of a sketch type thing. We don't want to render that quite as exotically as we might something that's closer to us. So I'm popping in a little bit of Prussian blue to it's going to be dark down there anyway. I'm going to come out with some raw umber into that mix and some yellow ochre, because if you notice, this area is less subdued than that area. And there are, of course, darker spots, but since we're painting dark to light, we can easily put those over top. This area here is pretty much the same thing, maybe a little more vivid. If you need a vivid, when you're mixing your greens, I like to use, rather than a green pigment, a blue and a yellow. Now, blue can be a lot of things, anything from ivory black to ultramarine blue or cerulean blue or cobalt blue or Prussian blue or, golly. Out here again, the open grassy area, it's a little more of the less vivid green. We're going to get into some dark greens over there. I'm trying to get the look that my favorite Sargent paintings had. It's this wonderful sketchy quality. Very dark over here, and it's going to frame our figures nicely. So I have to be careful not to hit hats. That's still wet. I can work some of this in because this paint is denser than the paint that I have down there now. And it's shadier there. You can work into an area that is wet if the paint that you're putting down next is a higher concentration of pigment than what's there. Don't put down a runny mix because that will cause the paint that's already there to flow away and create a blossom. So hopefully you can see right about now we are starting, I'm going to put a little bit of alizarin in there to get a purplish dark. It's very dark back here. You can start to see the form of this thing take shape. At least with regards to what the light and the shadow are doing. So you notice what I did there. I'm tracing this line with my brush so that I know where to stop with this stuff. Because right in the photograph, there are people. And they're in the way of that. But I need to kind of know where that's going to be. Okay. Try to eliminate those little light shark's teeth near the edge of the picture. Now, some of this, now that's very slow moving, it's non-moving paint, as you can see. When I hold this up, it doesn't move. When we were putting in this and some of that, if I'd have tilted it like this, it would have run down there. So a runny paint will give you a light, pale to a light value. A slow-moving paint will give you a light medium to medium value, and a non-moving paint is going to give you a dark value. So let's start executing some of this. Some of those, my wife, who's would have been her 73rd birthday today, she would know the terminology for all these things that I'm painting. Topiary, that's it. topiary. All these trees have been trimmed to these amazing cone shapes and stuff. And the deep shade, slow-moving, non-moving paint. And because that surface is still damp, it doesn't really create a strong, distinct mark. It sort of melts into the paint that's there. Now I'll paint the shadows onto the walk a little bit later because I want them, they will of course have to be different than the material that they're falling. If the shadow falls on grass, it's going to be one color, but if it continues onto the walkway or the concrete, it's going to be another color. So now I'm doing the darks on the most vertical part of the tree. Ultramarine is lovely for this. Maybe a little bit of alizarin in it to make it purple. Maybe a little more. We could even go into some purple. I think this is a dioxazine purple. Maybe get some blue with it, make a blue-violet. All of which I'm doing just to make this area jump forward. Her back of her head is dark. And make the background go far away. Let's see. These trees were tall. There's some light poles, stuff that come down there. Now, as we go back in space, rinsing that brush, blotting, the darks will not be as dark. So I'm bringing in cerulean, which is a lighter value of blue, mixing it into that. And I'm going to try and execute some of the shady areas which are farther away. They might be considered more the middle distance or something. All right, time to start addressing our figures, I think. Maybe I'll put some raw umber into this mix and a little bit of water. Blues and browns are very natural looking colors. So let's get some of the ultramarine, the cerulean, some of this raw umber mix. And this is you can see it's starting to move there. It's not as dense as what we have been using. And I'm going to try to execute the shadows from these topiary trees. other things in here too. There's people. Now notice there's the gap. If you want to make something look like it's going from grass to concrete, step down a bit. And you'll suggest the contour of the surface. Okay. Some of those things there are a little darker. Alrighty. I'm just looking to my image for clues. Where to go now? I think the place to go is put a bit more raw umber or burnt umber into this blue mix to get a neutralish color, neutral-ish. There's another. Blues and browns make very good neutrals. Back in here, there are some, but I'm not going to look in there and see too much of what's going on because that's not where the action is. Now you see there's some darks coming across here that I need to connect with. I'm connecting the darks, la 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 la, for those of you who ever watched Pee-wee's Playhouse. Put a little bit of red in that just to make it purplish. Some water. Tops of these people. They're mainly in shadow, but I'm going to darken the lower portions of the figure as they're let's see. Right now I'm not really thinking of them as figures. I'm thinking of them as dark passages versus light passages. That fountain in here, which wasn't on, which is too bad. Hi, Vicky. I guess when it comes on at night, it's pretty neat. Ultramarine blue, raw umber. Lots of ultramarine blue. I want something that's nearly black, so usually burnt umber and ultramarine blue will give me that without being actually black. So I'm going to hit the pants of this lady, or the leggings, I guess it was, and tie it into the darks coming down here. And while I'm at it, I'm going to get just some of the cerulean and put into the corner of that. And I'm going to pull out from these two figures and merge them with their cast shadows. Sometimes it pays to think of something and the shadow that it casts as a singular object, because they are, in a sense, one thing. So, we'll get to her top a little later. We're going to do the darker bits. More of the Burn Umber Ultramarine Blue Dark mix for his shorts. I'm going to make the short on the leg closer to us, come a little further down. His legs are going to be made darker. His hair, about the same value. I'm going to tint that highlight on his head later. Her hair, like so. The figures down here, who are in shade. Coming up the stairs, maybe I'll put a little more Burn Umber on parts of them. I'm just letting that bleed. The one color into the other color. Because I don't want it to really be about them. I want it to be about the urn and the close figures. Other things are going to happen in here, you will see. You know what? I need more green. Raw Umber, Nickel Azo Yellow, Prussian Blue, Ultramarine Blue. Raw Umber. Burn Umber. Something to make it a little browner. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Between these folks. Okay, we're getting there, we're getting there. Let's deal with our urn. We've been working over here. We need that area to dry before we can detail it anymore. The only thing I could do to it maybe is put a little yellow or yellow ochreish stuff on her hat. It's like a straw hat, but leave some highlight. I could get in there with some lavender and make her white top, the back of which we're seeing, look like it's in shadow. Leave a rim light on her shoulders. Let's pull that down into her pants. Okay, yeah, good, good, good. Well, for that matter, let's get some alizarin. Yeah, you can see that. And some lavender. Now this is a slow to runny moving, and we're going to try to execute color of his shirt there. The wrinkles are it's a little more lavender at the top. And the deeper parts of the folds. Probably going to have to tint the whole thing. We'll see. I'll glaze it later. I want to work on this urn. Now I may wipe out some of this. It's going to start happening pretty fast now. I want a kind of a sienna. I'm going to go back and have a look at sort of what Sargent did, that high illumination. There's yellow ochres and hi Sandy, pale blues and minor darks. Ours is going to be a little darker than what he's got going. So I'm going to mix the transparent oxide red / burnt sienna with some yellow ochre. Now when I look at this, I see it as getting more ochreish warm and then going to cool as it goes down. The whole thing's in shade. Now here, I'm going to start going into some cerulean while it's wet. So that, oh, it should be bluer, bluer, bluer. Let's get more blue. Let's get some lavender. Whole of the ram on that side is, I love this Holbein lavender color. Leave a little bit of light on the top of the ram's head there. Oh, John, what have you done? Quick blot. There's a light area here that I need to... There we go. More lavender. Now it starts to get warm again, so I'm going to go back to the yellow ochre, because light is reflecting up from the area down here, and then we go back to our lavender bluish color, maybe with a little stronger. I'm desperate to get that look. Maybe a little more of the sienna now in the front of the plinth. The base of that, some blue right at the bottom edge. The front of it is actually in pretty dark shape. So I'm going to mix some ultramarine blue and a little bit of burnt umber, but I'm not going to mix them terribly well so that the two colors will separate. And do that thing that watercolor does better than anybody else, than anything else. And here comes our shadow. That plus a little cerulean and a little bit more water, because the shadow won't be quite as dark. And I'm going to come off of here and make a lovely shape like so. That's actually up on there too, isn't it? Let's get a little bit of that in there. Let's get a little bit of that in there too. It's very dark back there, isn't it? Those folks coming up the stairs. Now, within the statue, the urn, yeah, circular. I'm going to make more of that shadow than is actually there. I love shadows. That's just me. Okay. Seems to be something over here. top edge of this thing. Hello, Mary. Hi, Susan. Little dark tuck-ins, some of which are bluish, some of which are brownish. I'm going to use umber and ultramarine blue. Maybe even some yellow ochreish. We're getting there, we're getting there. Might even bring a little of that down. There's a sort of a sun head here, which at this distance is probably a little too... The idea here is blues and browns, blues and browns. Some places the reflected light is causing a bit more warmth. Some places the shadow is quite significantly dark. Let's get some more people down here. The closer they get, the more figurative we can be. Farther away, the more insignificant they're going to be. Little dots. We're looking at now, there's a hard edge forming here, so I'm rinsing, blotting the brush, and bringing a damp brush to this to provide just enough water for that to travel a little farther than it is going. Okay, I think we're starting to get there. A little bit of pressure. Now I'm going to start popping in some very strong darks, purples, things like that. And I'm going to be doing them in the vicinity of our focal point, which is this urn, these people here, she has a strap. I need to frame these folks, and I've got a lot of strong darks there that are allowing me to do that. And with luck, I will get a sunshiny effect owing to the high contrast. Down at the base of these topiary trees, very strong darks. Since they're green, I'm going to smuggle in a lot of purple, which is a rough complement for them, being reddish. Now, over here I think I can get away with some of that too. Hi, Richard. Frame this lady's hat a little better. Maybe suggest a pole of some sort, some lighting over here. Using the same stuff but a little more water to get something lighter. Okay, what else can we... Oh, let's have some splatter on the gravel. Notice that the brush is pointed sideways so that it doesn't go into the sky or anything. That will not be good. And then we'll give it a smear just to bring the foreground forward. I might take this and a lot of water. And make that a little bit darker. Maybe some just business in here which will dry a lot lighter. Let's dry, we got to tint Jerry Seinfeld's shirt. The pink, well, let's get a red with a lot of water. It's a little too contrasty. And his girlfriend's shirt, let's make that a little bluer. To get her in backlit properly. Those folks could be darker. Let's get them neutral tint, not neutral tint, raw umber and blue. A few more people. Let's dry and detape and see what we've created. Right away, even before I do the peel and reveal, I can see something. I just need to have the whole tree thing, all that area, it needs to be deeper. So I'm going to glaze it with a Prussian and Nicolazo yellow, leaving a little bit of the existing one behind, the existing color behind. It just needs to be darker. It really just does. So that the grass looks a little bit lighter. And everything that's light gets pushed forward. Yeah, that's better, I think, I hope. Hat needs to be perhaps a little bit of yellow ochre there. Maybe we could have a little bit of something very neutral and a lot of water come through here. All right, let's detape. Hi, Linda. We could probably have a little more texture on the gravel in the foreground. Let's do that. Is it dry? Yeah. Let's get a scruffy brush that we don't really mind getting too beat up. Something like this. Hi, Nancy. I'm going to get something. Just do some dry brush marks. And let's pull and see what we get. Then I want to erase any stray pencil marks. I think Jerry Seinfeld's shirt could have been a little more rendered with a little bit more care. Oops, let's keep a piece of tape on here. See what we get. Still not dry, is it? I see wet places, especially over here where we glazed. Go, let's get an eraser and take out the stray pencil marks that we don't want. Always make sure you're good and dry before you do that sort of thing. Sometimes I like to leave some of them in for texture. But mostly I like to get them out. Okay. Now I can see I would like to have a little bit more interest going on with the sculptural detail on the urn. So the lower portions of the thing, of the bas-relief detail, would be a little darker, and the upper portions would be a little lighter. And there's some what do you call it? That kind of stuff. Sure, it has a name. I don't know what it is. I'm just going to put some lines in here. For the heck of having lines. And I'm going to make Jerry's legs a little darker, because they are. Oh, okay, maybe some bluishness. There we go. Oh, needs to be darker in there. Okay. A couple people. The closer they get, the darker they're going to be. So let's leave it at that. Laura, hello. Thank you, Becky. Yeah, boy, I tell you, these European spots, you just can't go wrong with them, man. They lend themselves to the act of painting so nicely. I'm going to put a bit of curvature to his shorts there. And I'm going to give his shoes a little bit more definition. And I'm going to call it quits right there. Oh, wait, one last thing. Oh, Michael, thank you. To make that shadow look transparent, I'm going to put a line through it. And that's that. So, the reason I greeted you all in Italian is because next Wednesday I will be in Rome. And so for that Wednesday and the following 3 Wednesdays, I will be in various places in Italy. I'm going to try to post a lot of pictures or sketches that I make, but I'm really looking forward to what I can find there. I know it's going to be amazing. I'm going to be in Rome, then Sorrento, then Florence, and then going to wind up in Venice. So how can we go wrong? I don't think we can. And I will try to post some fun things from then. So until May, our next live will be May 15, but I will try to throw in some fun stuff in the interim. At least in terms of sketches and photos. So, thank you all for tuning in. It's always fun to paint with you guys. I hope you learned something fun. Thank you, Catherine. We will be on a Boeing plane, not one of the bad ones, but some Airbuses too, so I think we're all right. Everybody, stay safe, stay sane, and ciao.